So demand is the relationship between price and quantity demanded. And quantity demanded is the amount that we are willing and able to buy at each price level. So we're looking at when price changes, what happens to the amount we are willing and able to buy. So demand is really based on our ability to purchase a good or service. So are we able? This really comes down to, can we afford it? And the other thing we have to consider, though, is, do we like that product? Because if we don't like it, we're not going to buy it. So that's where the willingness comes in. That is our desire to purchase a good. Well, these impact why the demand curve is downward sloping. And the demand curve is downward sloping for two reasons: the income effect and the substitution effect. So let's take a look at these. Let's start with the income effect. Suppose we drop the price of a Pepsi from $1 to 50 cents. So price went from $1 and now it's 50 cents. It's gone down. So now that the price is lower, if you go to buy the same number of cans of Pepsi you bought before, you're going to have money left over. And this makes you feel like you have more income. But it's not your actual income, it's not your paycheck that has changed. What has changed is your buying power, right? You can now get more with your money. And so we call this real income. So real income is your buying power, what you can get for your money. And so your real income goes up when the price goes down. Price goes down, real income goes up. You can get more for your money. So the idea then is, if the price falls and we like the good, we're going to buy it. And our ability to purchase more of the good has increased. Because if before we had $5, for example, of income allocated to buying Pepsi, before we could get 5 Pepsis. But now that they're 50 cents each, we can get 10 Pepsis. And since we like them, we probably want more of them, and our ability now has increased. So this explains why we get the downward sloping demand curve, because as the price goes down, our real income has increased, we can get more for our money, which means the quantity that we're willing and able to buy increases. Now, the other reason you have a downward sloping demand is what we call the substitution effect. The substitution effect says, well, I'm going to consider that there are other goods, substitutes, that I might want instead. And if there are two goods that are substitutes that are the same in my mind, then I'm going to consider which of those is cheaper. So let's suppose that you like Coke and Pepsi the same. To you, they taste the same. You're happy with either one. Well, if the price of Pepsi goes up higher than the Coke, you would switch to the Coke. So what that means, as the price of Pepsi goes up, and as it goes up above the substitutes, then what's going to happen is the quantity that we are willing to buy of the Pepsi will go down. So price goes up, quantity demanded goes down. We go from here to here. We still have that downward sloping demand curve. So demand curves tend to be downward sloping. There are some exceptions to that. We do talk about that in microeconomics. Now, to get a perspective of the income effect and the substitution effect, let's consider another story. All right, every day you eat at the same cafe. Okay, every day you go there, and let's say this cafe, you get a $10 sandwich and your $1 Pepsi. Okay, well, you go one day to get your sandwich that you normally pay $10 for, and now you find that that sandwich is now $1,000. Do you get it? Well, it's become a lot more expensive, right? But it's your lucky day, because this morning, on your way into work, You checked the mail from yesterday and there was a check in there from your long-lost uncle. And that check gave you an extra $1,000 you didn't have before. So if you have an extra $1,000 you didn't have before, and now as you're standing in the cafe looking at the sandwich, and the sandwich is now $1,000, can you afford the same number of sandwiches you got before? Well, if you have an extra $1,000, you can now get the sandwich. So your real income, your buying power, it hasn't changed if your income went up the same amount that the price of the goods went up. Okay, there's no change. You can still get it. But would you get it? Well, no one's going to pay $1,000 for a sandwich. You would switch to an alternative, right? Because there's so much better things you could spend $1,000 on than a sandwich. So what you would do then is you would not buy the sandwich. You would go buy something else for lunch, maybe a hamburger. So that's the substitution effect. So when the price goes up, even if there is no income effect, no change in your real income, because your income went up simultaneously, we would still consider the alternatives and switch to something cheaper if there is a substitute. So demand curves are downward sloping because of the income effect. When prices go up and nothing else changes, ceteris paribus, then our real income or buying power goes down when prices go up. And when prices go up, we tend to switch to cheaper products. So all of those tell us that when prices go up, the amount we're willing and able to buy goes down, give us this downward sloping graph.